All right. Good morning, everybody. I know some of you are waiting, so let me know you can hear me. Where you at? If I up here a minute ago, I could see all of you chatting away before I go in there. Okay. Okay. All right. So there you are. I see you guys now. So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to a brand new week. And yes, welcome to today's sermon. I know that does get on the nerve of a whole lot of you conventional brothers in Christ and sisters too, for that matter. But hey, good morning. So since you got to come in a little early, we're going to do what we usually do when you come in early. So let's unpack something that's been on my mind this week. For quite a while, I've had a lot of people tell me about how rude I can be, how nasty my tone is, how much I abuse the ruiners of Nigeria. There I go again, calling them ruiners. So they have all these complaints. And then there was this gentleman, absolute gentleman, some Otumba or the other. He was on my Facebook page during the week, this last week. And he was extremely respectful, perfect gentleman. Says, oh, he agrees with almost everything I say, but he's not particularly happy with my choice of words, the way I call them thieves, ruiners, crooks, bandits. Yeah, he didn't like all of that. He didn't like it one bit. But he said he passed this disagreement in a fairly respectful manner. And even though I gave him a response explaining to him just how much I don't abuse these people, but I merely describe them. If somebody is a thief, what else was I supposed to be calling the person but a thief? If he has a public record of stealing, what else am I supposed to call him but a thief? That the court system has not convicted the person of stealing, but it is a notorious fact that the person is a thief, or that the person is a murderer, for instance, notorious fact, and then I call him a murderer, and then the fact of the matter is that imperfect as our laws are, the truth remains an absolute defense, whether that be for civil damages or criminal liabilities. Fact of the matter is, when I call people who they are, I do so flowing from my Yoruba roots. Yorubas will say that, Bufumi kin bufunwe lakere nkiludo. What it simply means, devoid of all the onomatopoeic sound, is actually reciprocity governs relationships. If you do not respect me, you should not expect any respect from me in return. The fact of the matter is that in Yoruba tradition and culture, respect begins from the person who is demanding or expecting respect. If you have failed to respect yourself, you have no right, ab initio, to expect or demand respect from the other person. It's not about age. Even an elder is demanded to respect himself or herself before he or she may demand respect from the other person. You must respect yourself first. That's where it starts. When you have a country that is comprised of a ruining class that has zero respect for those they are supposed to care for, when they have willfully, carelessly, without regard, brutalized the people to the point where they have shown no regard or respect for these people, why must you demand respect from me for people who have shown the utmost disrespect both to themselves first? Because if they had any respect for themselves, regardless of how corrupt, quote and unquote, they might be, they will still build a country they may be proud of, a country their own children may happily inherit. They will build one. But you're dealing with a country where the ruiners are ab initio completely self-disrespecting, that they have dehumanized themselves first before representing the country that they are meant to rule, govern, husband, to pretend, but that they have ruined completely. How do you demand respect of me for such odious? To even call them human beings sometimes is a pain, because they have dehumanized themselves before they started the process of dehumanizing their victims. So please, I have no respect for those who have no respect for themselves. The superficiality of the relationships that we have all built, daddy Gio, mommy Gio, Alpha, Imam, this one, that one, they are bowing and scraping to people who have only utter contempt for you or your welfare or those of your children or your interest for that matter. They have no regard whatsoever for you. And then you are demanding that I should respect people that I can see only with contemptuous eyes. I'm sorry. Hmm. Ẹni tó bá mọyì wúrà, òun là ń tà fún. You sell pearls and diamonds to those who know the value. I respect me. Because I respect me, I show respect to those deserving of respect. So I'm sorry if I don't always fit into your expectation of what I should look like and how I should speak, but I have no respect for those who are not deserving of respect. The choice of words are also deliberate. It is to communicate to those of you who are my fellow victims that this is how you should treat these people, with the utter contempt that they treat you with and with the utter contempt that they deserve. Nothing more, nothing less. Good morning again. It's almost 10 o'clock, and we're going to start this morning. Welcome. We have a few seconds to 10. I'm not going to jump the gun. I got my timer, so it's 10 o'clock now. Good morning, ladies, gentlemen. Welcome to church. So, I did have my usual rant before you timely people came in. So, if you have time, take a look at what had gone before. But good morning, welcome to a brand new week. This morning, there is a phrase that has gained traction in Nigeria for some time. And I heard it a lot in recent times. And that is the one that says that it speaks to the owners of Nigeria. Yeah, you heard me. The owners of Nigeria. That is a phrase that a lot of people have they've used it in recent times. In fact, it's gained a lot of traction during the so-called years of democracy. The phrase has been used a lot and is meant a lot depending on the context of usage. But most of the time, I think in the years of In the years of Buhari, when it pleased the southern politicians to use ethnicity and religion to play their grievance politics, they spoke about the ownership of Nigeria in terms of the Fulani. So they will point at Buhari and his cabinet of northerners and Fulani people, Muslims, and they say those are the owners of Nigeria. But some of us who have been alive a little longer would also remember that during the years of Jonathan, even though he was from a minority, practically everybody in Abuja were busy wearing senator and all of that, the Niger Delta cap. So the ownership of Nigeria would appear to usually be associated with the person who is sat in power. You and I know that Lagos has been transported to Abuja and Abuja has been transported to Lagos. So in these days and time, especially with the coterie of Yoruba ruiners who are surrounding the chief ruiner, what you have today is that something of a Yoruba hegemony of sort has also been installed. So when they talk about the owners of Nigeria these days, you could also point at the Yorubas, especially the clique around the Jagaban as the owners, at least the current owners of the franchise to misrule Nigeria as they please. So usually when they talk about the owners of Nigeria, what you would usually imagine are those who are in power and the beneficiaries. But I beg to also flip it a little so that you might perhaps begin to understand this a little better. When you speak to the ownership of a thing, you're actually speaking to ownership. You know me, I trained as a lawyer. So when you say owner, it comes from, I think, is that the noun? Own. Is it verb? Lemon. You people who translate that, you are the English experts. The important thing is that owner comes from own. For you to be the owner, you must own the thing. So, in the real sense of the word, own, who owns a country? Who owns a country or a thing? Let's start with the thing. I own this. It's mine. It's in my hand. I'm in possession of it. So I'm the owner in possession, right? So I own this. But it might very well be that this was borrowed from my wife. So she will be the owner in equity. I'm the owner in trust. Now I'm showing off. But the important thing is that I possess this thing. I am the owner of that thing, right? That is ownership. Plain and simple, devoid of legalese, at least as much as can be done. But there are times when you own something in trust for another person. I'll give you a case in point. When Obasanjo was going to leave power the first time, yeah, some of you are not born then, 1979, there was a decree that was promulgated. It was called the Land Use Act. No, the Land Use Decree. See that Land Use Decree? It was smuggled into the 1979 Constitution and it became the Land Use Act. You got it? See that Land Use Act? Let's unpack it a little. Because what it does is that it created a trust, as in, it says, okay, oh, I am giving the land in the state. Let me give it to the governor to hold in trust, as in, make it keep am, hold am for the people. So the state, the governor of the state, becomes the person. Let me break it down. Imagine that Papa passed away in his old age. May every one of us live long to the glory of God. And then he left his properties. He gave it to your oldest, not even your old, okay, let's say the head of the compound. Whoever becomes the head of the compound should administer the property to the benefit of the household. Baba, Olori Ebi, yes, now the head of the family, the Opa, now decided to be spending the money from he started selling the family land as though it belonged to him. That is the Land Use Act, broken down in little bit. So the governor of your state is the owner of the land on your behalf in every state of the federation. Federation, another story. So he now took the land that has been buckled out like that as a trustee, and he deals with it as though he's the beneficial owner. He owns it, it's his own, as though the government is the owner. Government begins to sell land as owner of land. Do you understand? Now you are beginning to get it. That is what has happened across the length and breadth of Nigeria. So you have governments who are meant to be trustees of your commonwealth, who have turned themselves into owners of the commonwealth. Now, so when you begin to talk about ownership, you must understand that this is how ownership breaks down. It is about who has effective control of that thing. That is the person who is the owner of that thing. So now let's break it down to this. Yorubas will say, "Ohun tó dilẹ̀ lewúrẹ́ ń gbé." If you are talking in terms of a country, the owners of the country should be the citizens of the country. You remember we discussed this when we were talking about the victims and the allergies. Remember, allergies. The allergies are the beneficiaries. You, who should be the victim, who should be the citizens, are the victims. So when you now have a situation where a country does not have citizens, and let me explain, I know you don't like hearing it. There are more Yoruba men in Nigeria than Nigerians. There are more Igbo people in Nigeria than Nigerians. More Fulani men in Nigeria than Nigerians. More Ijaw men in Nigeria than Nigerians. You probably even have more Liverpool supporters in Nigeria than Nigerians. I know you don't understand this sometimes when I say it, so let me break it down. When I say who owns Nigeria, it begins with the question of, who is the person in whose name the country is supposedly functioning? Do you own it? Do you even desire to own it? Do you believe that it is yours to the point where you feel a proprietary interest in it, sufficient to fight for it? Do you understand that part? Yoruba says ohun tó dilẹ̀ lewúrẹ́ ń gbé, which means that it is what you ignore that the goat eats. When you put your valuable food, whether that is baki, whether that is even your cocoa beans, whatever it is, whatever you're spreading out in the sun to dry, your food items, you're careful to watch over it so that the goat does not turn your food into their own food. That is what you do classically when you are the owner. You take responsibility of ownership. Did you get that bit? It is easy to speak to the victimization of the Nigerian, but how do you speak to the Nigerian's abandonment of his own right to fight for what he owns, but that has been taken away from him? How? How do you get him to understand that? See, earlier today, this morning, I was just randomly scrolling around on social media, and then I ran into a video by a young Black American, and he was describing what he called the gangbanger. The gangbanger is usually members of a gang who ride around, and then they go into a different territory, a different neighborhood, and what are they looking for? They're looking for the guy who is dressed like them, who has their walk, the swag, who looks like themselves. They know that that person who belongs to another race is another cult member or gang member in that neighborhood. So they kill the person. The only thing that makes the person different from them is the color of the person's skin. That is what is happening in Nigeria. That was what struck me immediately. I listened to that Black American giving that exposition of what the gangbanger is and what he does and how he identifies his victim. Fact of the matter is that the person you're constantly hating on in the other ethnic group or the other religiosity or the other sexual orientation or whatever it is, that other person that you're busy hating on is actually you. Is your mirror image. That is the person that you ought to be finding common cause with in order to walk away from your state of victimhood. But you're too busy hating that you abandon your own responsibility to take possession, take ownership of that thing. Citizenship does not come dashed away. It is not in human nature to avoid cheating. No, it takes citizens' demand. Go read the history of the Magna Carta. I think that was in 10 something. Imagine, over 1,000 years ago or thereabout. Yeah, over 1,000 years ago. Some people stood against the King of England and he was forced to cede rights. That was the basis of the Bill of Rights. Every Bill of Rights that human beings have enjoyed, as far as the human Western civilization is concerned, flow from that. We had better and far much more advanced bills of rights in Africa long before the white man darkened our shores. I'm a Yoruba man. It is my culture that evolved the proverb that says, "Ba se beru la biomo," you bet the nobleman. No, you bet the slave exactly the same as the freeborn. That was Yoruba. They also said, tó bá ń torí ẹmọ ẹrú ṣòfin rántí ọjọ́ tí ó mọ̀ọ́mọ̀ joyè. If you are making a law with the children of the slaves in mind, remember the day when that law will catch up with the children of the nobles. That is the civilization from where I came. That is the Yoruba civilization. That is not the white man. And that had been there. It was never written. It was part and parcel of our everyday life as a people. When you, because of the slave, make a law, remember the day when the same law will catch the children of the noble. That is not a society that functioned on today's bare-faced lunacy. This feudalistic system that has dehumanized the people is unknown to my culture. The Yoruba culture abhors it. So when you own, you can only own slaves. We are freeborns, but it is we ourselves who need to recognize for our own selves that we have a duty to take possession of what belongs to us. And then they have another proverb. They will say, it is as you honor your vessel that it shall be honored. If you use your vessel to eat and you clean it and keep it in the place of plates used for eating, nobody will pick it up and use it as a bowl to be taken into the toilet. It is your own readiness to denigrate yourselves that has taught our ruiners how to treat you. If you are accepting of oppression, why should they not oppress you? Look at Yeli, for instance. I've said it before. It's a walking violation of the Nigerian code. Not everybody will go around ready to rock and roll like Yeli. But you, what are you even willing to stand up for? Exactly at what point are you willing to grow a spine? At what point? When would you stop oppressing the little ones around you as well? Those that you could treat humanely. Have you shown the state how to treat them humanely in your own space? How oppressive are you with those around you? How just, how equitable are you? Because we need to be very clear that if we are continually lamenting our victimhood, where is the place of our own responsibility to even free ourselves from the burden of enslavement? What have we done, either as individuals or as a collective? Exactly what have we done? Why do we expect that somebody else will bestow freedom or liberty on us? See, who are the owners of Nigeria? I think it is very easy to find the owners of Nigeria, and I'm not talking about the British now. The beneficiaries here in Nigeria. Let's deal with those ones first. If you picked up any constitution, Nigeria's own pretends to be one as well. Decree 24 of 1999 pretends to be a constitution. And one of the first things that it does, or it did, is I told a lie. A very blatant, barefaced lie. It says, we the people. Now, as much as it lies, it also told some truths. We, in the context of the Nigerian constitution, does not refer to me and you. It wasn't speaking to the Nigerians who are essentially victims of that fraud. He was speaking, when he said we, he was speaking for those responsible for bringing out that document. And who are the people responsible for bringing out that document? It was essentially Abdusalam and the military bandits who had de facto power and their civilian counterparts, and of course, their foreign consultants and principals. It is when you continue to delude yourselves into believing that the we in that phrase is speaking of you, that you'll be deluded into believing that you are the owners, as the American will believe himself to be the owner of his country, or the British will believe himself to be the owner of his country, being citizens of those countries. Citizenship, as I've explained to you many times, can only happen in a space governed by law. In spaces ungoverned by law, such as our own, you cannot be citizens. You are merely victims. So when they say we, they know that they are the people and they are the owners of their country because they are responsible for the evolution of their constitution. But me and you, the reality of our existence as Nigerians is that we are not the people who wrote that constitution. The owners, the beneficial owners, those for whom Nigeria is paradise, those who have the immunity of impunity, those are the owners as are today, because we have failed to own it. You know, there is this arrogance that underpins humanity. We almost always believe that we will live forever. Error. You're only ever given the moment. So if you are given something to say in the moment, say it so that it becomes clear to all, because you may not be available to say it tomorrow. I have seen all kind of posters being put up on my behalf by different human beings, friends, and I'm sure even my enemies. Oh, daily for this, oh, daily for that. And I was thinking to myself, there's no point talking about this issue. Leave it until later. But I can't leave it until later. Let's deal with it now because it dovetails into what I want to discuss with you all. I don't want to be your president. I'm not interested in becoming a governor either. I want to birth a country. Yeah. I want to birth a Nigeria that my children and your children would be proud of. That is what interests me. As president of this Nigeria, I can't do jack. There's nothing I can do to change this Nigeria. As governor of any state in this Nigeria, maybe I might be able to start the process, but I really can't do anything and it does not interest me. What interests me is much bigger. I want to birth a Nigerian nation, one that my children and your children will be proud to live in. It is not beyond our capacities if we will take ownership of what we have. I know you would argue that you're better off in your utopian republics. No problem, but hear me out. For you to peaceably go into your utopian republics that you believe you can own, since you cannot own Nigeria, you would have to, first of all, own this Nigeria with us. And then we can all sit down as a collective after we have taken ownership of this one. If we don't take ownership of this one, it is next to impossible for you to gain the one that you want. Let the victims of this Nigeria who have despised this Nigeria, because Nigeria is functionally not owned by the victims of Nigeria. It is owned by the ruining class and those who benefit from the stupidity and madness of that ruining class. I have no interest in joining them. See, you humbled me when I went to prison in Ekiti. I came back understanding that it is in our collective that we can be effective. If you hadn't risen up in the manner that you rose up, I would have rotted in that place for as long as the powers who sent me there would care. It was you speaking that got them to move. You. It was you. It took you speaking as a collective. So why should it be so difficult for us to come together as a collective? That is what interests me. I don't want to be your president. I want to see a country where your vote counts. Do you understand? I want to see a country where the rulers or the managers of the country are appointed by you and fired by you. I want to see a country where you can go to the court confident that you will get justice. I want to see a country where our education curriculum makes sense because of our environment. I want to see a country where we are graduating people who can contribute positively to our society. That is what I want to see. I'm not interested in becoming a governor, a senator, House of Rep, and I don't want any office. If I come to you to begin to beg you to make me this or make me that, it makes me a partisan hack. Would I stand behind candidates? You betcha. Would I be part and parcel of some political party? Clap for yourself. I will. I assure you, I am not becoming apolitical, but I am not interested in political office. I am interested in seeing a country that works for all of us. Whatever your ideology, your religion, your ethnicity, it does not concern me. For as long as we are all here together, we must become the people. We must become the owners of Nigeria. Look, let me assure you, greatness is born of delusions, and genius is the price that you attain when you learn to manage your insanity. You need to be delusional to achieve greatness. It's easy to talk about Alexander the Great, conquering almost the whole world, the one they knew. But the question is this: was that a sane thought when he was born in what is it Macedonia or Greece? But Europe certainly. Was it? It wasn't sane. There is nothing about our objective reality that suggests that it makes sense to imagine that Nigeria can be battered. But the reality is that we have to birth it. And if you don't realize how urgent it is, look to the age of Trump. Look at what is happening all around us. If we are not to become victims for the whole world, if we are not to become as vagabonds, let us be clear. It is time we, the victims of Nigeria, become the owners of Nigeria. Nigeria is an orphan because you have killed yourselves to it. You believe rightly that it is the beginning and end of your troubles. Okay. But let's look at it objectively. How do you untie this Gordian knot without shedding blood? And exactly who would you be fighting for yourselves? The gangbanger riding around the other neighborhood looking for yourselves to shoot, dying and fighting every day in the armies of your oppressor. At what point do you come to the knowledge of the fact that you are partly or mostly to blame for what is happening or has happened to you? Nigeria was not found on citizenship. It was found on ethnicity. It was found on religiosity. If it was found on citizenship, there would never have been the need for the insistence of the southern minorities on the Bill of Rights, which came out of the Willings Commission of 1957, I believe. It was because of their fears that Nigeria was inequitable. That inequitable Nigeria, whose inequities were partly ameliorated by the adoption of federalism in 1954, is more or less the one that's been killed. That Nigeria that ameliorated those fears. Today, you have a unitary system. In fact, that's an abuse of the English language. You have a feudalized system that has stripped each and every one of us of our citizenship by the destruction of the judicial system, which has assured that the law does not rule in our country. So we have become as victims in our own country, but we are largely to blame for our victimization. As I said in opening, ohun tó dilẹ̀, òun lewúrẹ́ ń gbé. When you abandon your goods, it becomes food for the goats. The goats, and I mean this literally and figuratively, the goats ruling Nigeria today have found space to rule because we have been even stupider than the goats. We abandoned what is ours. And today, we're not oppressed by the white men. It is our own who have enslaved us. And for those of you who will say it's the Fulani, or it's the Yoruba, or it's the Igbo, who rules in your state? If you are from Ala Igbo, when was the last time a Fulani man governed the land of the rising sun? My dear Yoruba brothers and sisters, when was the last time you had an Igbo governor in your state? My dear Northerners, When was the last time somebody came from outside of your state to govern you? And yet, since we started this democratic experiment, we've never had it so bad. But they point at the other person as the enemy. The owners of Nigeria are the victims of Nigeria, but they've been very careless owners. Remember that song from our childhood, Lost and Found, Careless Owner. Remember it? Yep. You lot have been most careless owners. You have not used your vessels unto honor, and you have taught your oppressors exactly how to deal with you. Find common cause. Identify your fellow victims. Stand behind these common causes. Remember the way you stood behind me just a few weeks ago? Stand behind those common causes. And a final word before I go, and this goes to the Nigerian police. You guys are going to have to decide whether you are policing a fascist state or a democracy. The manner in which you've just been picking people up and down the place for stupid reasons in a democracy. And then the other day, one guy, I think he speaks for the Nigerian police, is talking about Newton's third law. And I shook my head. The only thing I have to say to him is encapsulated in a Yoruba proverb. Omoba, Ijagun bí ẹrú. Change your tactics. Change your tactics. The Nigerian police can do with a better image. Gentlemen, ladies, that's it for this week. A word is enough for the wise. Have a blessed weeks.